of the program, and we let team members be the voice of the project, not me, the project manager, not the business development person, but the team members in front of the client being the voice of the project. And this is the thing that really happened. A client said, "Hey, what about doing this? What about adding this? Whatever piece of functionality." So there was a QA engineer in this workshop, and she spoke up and said that's a great idea, what you want to do in terms of functionality, but have you thought about all the testing that would have to occur to make that happen? She perfectly laid out the regression testing scenarios, perfectly laid out some of the best ways to do it. It would be through some automation, et cetera, et cetera. And the client absolutely could not have been more thrilled than this person he probably hadn't met before. In fact, I know he hadn't met before, was voicing this, was providing this great insight that, allowed us to say, yeah, that's a great piece of functionality, but let's make that part of phase 2. Instead of us having to going back to that client later and, surprising them with, oh, wow, there's all sorts of testing involved in this piece of functionality. Mm-hmm. So that to me is this sort of seminal moment that said, you know what, I've got to be, I still got to have to be the center of communications, the center of the project, but my job is really to make the voices of the experts on the team heard by the people paying the bills.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting you say that because, at the place I'm at now, Foundry, at Foundry, we do product design workshops with our clients, and we bring a senior UX and a senior engineer into the room alongside with a project manager or a product owner. And we invite actual users into the sessions. And just like what you're saying is that the amount of information that can be gathered in a short amount of time with the right people in the room not only saves the project, but it saves the client a lot of money in the long run. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's where, to your point earlier about that position of project manager becoming more strategic. I think that's the area that we do need to become more strategic, is to, and I'll use the word, force some of these more modern methodologies mm-hmm. on projects and program teams who are still struggling with sort of the old-fashioned ways of executing projects, and of hey, there's a business development person and maybe a project manager funneling the communications through the team. I know when we talk in conversations like this, and when we are around other people of sort of our backgrounds, we're like, everyone's doing agile, everyone's doing these workshops and product development planning, but the reality is that you still have a huge number of projects being run in sort of old-fashioned methods where the role of project manager is the taskmaster, is the calendar keeper, mm-hmm. Et cetera, et cetera. And I don't, of course, want to say that those functions aren't necessary. They absolutely are, but they are becoming less valuable than someone who can be the center of project communications and be that strategic thinker about what is the right way to get the work done, who are the right people that need to be talking at the right time to bring the most efficient outcomes for your customers.
If you were talking to a project manager that's sort of stuck in that older way of working, or even somewhere in the middle, and you were to give them some advice on how to become more of a strategic player within an organization, where would you tell them to go? What would you tell them to do? Where would you suggest they start?
The first thing I tell people who are interested in taking that next step is work on things like public speaking. Work on things like being the a central voice, even if it's in a project status meeting. Don't just sit there and be the note taker and the planner. But if you're running a status meeting, change it up a little bit, stand up in the room, show your position of authority, have the strength and maybe the audacity to, tell the, very, vocal and, it always has to have the strongest voice in the room, salesperson, for example. Hey, pause on that thought. The QA engineer or the UX person, has a really important point there. So to me, the key is for project managers who want to grow into a more strategic role is finding a voice of authority, but use that voice and authority in a way that that elevates the project team members. It elevates their voice. And then what starts to happen is that they have, a greater degree of respect for you and your role, because they're really starting to understand that, yes, you are indeed their advocate. You are the one, supporting them, and you are the one, helping them, advance their voice and advance their, their career and their role in the particular project.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is, learn, absolute project managers today, especially in whether it's this, advertising and marketing world or, the digital space, whatever, learn these techniques that, are typically, found in, agile methodologies, or sometimes you of course hear about them if you're of people who are proponents of design thinking, obviously, discovery workshops, team-based road mapping activities, learning those methods, learning those techniques, having the ability to guide, a disparate group of disciplines in a short period of time to have aha moments that I all the time see in discovery workshops, is having that skill set, quickly, elevates you beyond, a standard project manager who is about timelines and communicating who's responsible for what.
It's not necessarily just the skills of project management that is going to get you to that next level. It's all the things that surround it. So when people ask me, like, what's a good book on project management I should read, I'll say, how about How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah.
So all those things you said about learning better presentation skills, go to Toastmasters and learn how to better present ideas, spend more time around management expectations and trainings and those sorts of things, and then bring it back to the team to be a better person that's supporting the team, because you can have that strong voice either in front of the client or the account team or the CEO or whoever it needs to be, a person who's sponsoring the project, to make sure that that team is getting not only the recognition that they deserve, but they're getting that voice in order to help guide it to a successful outcome.
Yeah, and I've seen it time and time again when you give the team members that voice. Again, I always like to use the term, the people who are actually doing the work,
Right. Yes.
They're not, they're, not the managers, not a manager like me, but someone who's actually got, keys on a keyboard, producing stuff. When you allow those people to have, a strong and authoritative voice, with the customer and the client in the room, man, that makes the client listen more. Because they know, that person knows what they're talking about.
Right. Because then, they see the real value in working with you, because they're getting an actual team and not a group of individuals that are going to kind of circus their way into a successful project.
Absolutely.
What I see coming in the future for project management is there's a lot of automation happening. I mean, one of the biggest buzzwords over the last year has been marketing automation. And I see the same thing kind of heading down towards the project management role, where you've got places with DevOps, design ops. You've got I just did a demo on a AI time tracker tool. It just automatically goes in and starts to fill in your timesheets and things based on AI. And some of these other project management tools I've seen are incorporating some more automation into them. And so the way that I see it is not that projects will run themselves necessarily in the future, but I believe that the project management role is really going to change over the next few years, and not just because of Agile or Lean or these other things, but I think that the role will be looked at as somebody who can add more value to the overall engagement of not only the team, but with the project sponsor, not just somebody who makes sure that we hit a budget number.
Yeah, absolutely. Every project manager out there, has to, realize that, tools and technologies that we have, relied on, every day and minute of our working careers, over the past, 10, 15 years are, just changing massively. And you pointed out that it's not just because of things like Agile. It's not, but there's, really, what I think is a, sort of one of those, important moments of realization in my career as a project manager over the past few years, that when we have had Agile projects up and running, and humming, and teams configured the way they're supposed to be, which is, around, a small group of people who are, allowed to, focus on, a particular, body of work, and making sure you have those things in place where that group of people isn't interrupted, et cetera, et cetera. All those, particular, methods of, effective Agile setups. But what happens to the project management role in there? Is that they're not needed as much,
right?
So you start to ask yourself, what is the role of the project manager in those scenarios? And to your point, the role of the project managers in those scenarios is really thinking about what's next. Really making sure that, well, first of all, that the team has the support and sort of a defense that they are allowed to focus on what they should be working on. And then, when they come up for air, that they know that you've helped sort of, chart a path, blaze a trail for them, a bit about what's next.
Yeah, well, I think it's really changed from command and control to support, yes. Right? It's a big swing that I feel has made I don't know. I feel like it's left some project managers or even some PMOs in general at a loss.
Yeah, and obsolete, right?
Right.
But I will say, I don't think there for the right project managers, I don't think there will be, any shortage of, the strategic phases of projects where, the same value can be brought. And it's speaking from, the experience in the industries I've been involved in, think about it, the project management role has very oftentimes been focused mainly around the phases of projects and programs that are, production like, where people are actually, where people are starting to build things. And, and coordinating the tasks and activities of actually building. But, we have to ask ourselves the question, how much time is spent in early phases of projects that are more about the strategy, more about the planning. Because one thing I find is that timelines still slip in early phases of projects and programs when the phase is about the strategy. Maybe, within, I'll say within the advertising agency, world where, planners and strategy people are working on things like, briefs and whatnot, which are still an absolutely required deliverable. But it's easy for timelines to slip on things like that because it feels like to the team that, it's just a document. It's not something that, requires, developers and QA people to, spend, countless hours on.
Right.
So, there's this sense that it's okay for those things to slip. But, I find that the role of, project managers and sometimes even, program managers, their value really starts to shine in the early phases of those projects and programs when they are, holding, high level and, strategic thinkers, accountable to timelines in the same way that they have been holding, people who are, largely, production type people to timelines. So that's again, where it takes, that, strategic ability, that ability to, navigate political waters,